Alright, this afternoon we're going to be doing the routing and mapping class. I'll show you how we can set up a route schedule for repeating services, as well as how to manage some automated billing based off that route schedule. And then we'll also look at how we can use Microsoft MapPoint to optimize those routes and plot them on a map that we can see. Before we get into what I would call some of the fun stuff we can do with the routes, we first have to set them up. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my route schedule by just clicking the route schedule button on the top toolbar. And this is a blank route schedule. Basically, if you were starting from scratch or one of our new users, this is what you should see. Now the first thing I need to set up are my service frequencies, or basically the intervals between my customer services. And to do that, we just need to double click in this first field labeled frequency. Now if you're watching this video and you're one of our existing users and you're looking at all these new options for the month selection, this is available in our latest updates. So please check for updates, get on the latest version, and you can have some of these advanced options. Now the first frequency I'm going to create is basically a weekly frequency. One of the most basic. I'm just going to call it weekly. And then it's going to have a length of days of 7. That simple. That right there you could set up any customer on this weekly frequency, and it would reoccur if you set them up for Monday. It would reoccur once every Monday, once every 7 days. If you set them up for weekly on Wednesday, they would reoccur every Wednesday. I could also create a bi-weekly using that same format once every 14 days. I also could create a simple monthly, which would reoccur, I'd recommend, once every 28 days. And I use 28 days here just to kind of get a every 4-week schedule. So if we set someone up on this monthly frequency for, let's say, Friday, they would reoccur one Friday every 4 weeks. Now you could use a calendar month for this, either 30 or 31 days. The only downside is you will eventually have services that start occurring on a Saturday or Sunday as you advance your schedules. If we keep this at 28, we can guarantee it would always fall on the day you set it up. So if you set a customer up, again, for Friday on this monthly frequency, they would reoccur every Friday, every 4 weeks. I could also, if I wanted to do more of a true calendar month type frequency, I could maybe create a monthly first Monday. I'm just using FM for short for first Monday. I'm going to leave my length and days blank and go right over to use interval settings. This is where I could have it reoccur the first, second, third, fourth, or last, whatever day of the week, on the months that you selected. So if this was monthly, I would then check every month. I could use this to create maybe a bi-monthly or a quarterly. Again, use interval settings, and maybe this is going to reoccur on the last Friday every other month. Now another common frequency we do see a lot is basically like a one-time service. So I could create one called one time. Length of days would be 0. Then I want to select delete after posting the route, which I'll demonstrate here in just a moment. This is basically just going to allow me to add a stop onto my route schedule for a one-time service or a call-in service. And when I'm finished with that day, it's going to be deleted off my schedule because it does not reoccur. Anyone have any questions on how to set up and manage the frequencies here? Or maybe you have a frequency in mind, you don't really see how you could set it up. Feel free to ask me if you'd like real quick.
What if you just have random every day, like let's say you're a taxi company, and every day your frequency, your route changed?
I'm having a little trouble understanding that. It was real quiet. I don't know if you have me on speakerphone.
Hold on. I'm just saying, what if you were a taxi company and your route changed every day?
I will show you what are the people obviously calling in for that service, and then you would need to kind of build a route every day based on the work you have.
Build a route every day.
Okay. We have a feature in our software that allows you to easily do that using tasks. And
T-A-S-K?
yes, tasks, T-A-S-K-S, and that's this morning in our beginner class we covered how to create a task using the employee task list here. So let's say throughout the day you are creating tasks as customers are calling in for that scheduled service, or in your case they're calling for a pickup or transportation from A to B. We would go task entry, pick the customer. You would then need to create maybe a task type for pickup or whatever it may be. I'm just going to use service call here. And you would have a bunch of these based on the due date. This one may be due today. Someone calls in and needs a pickup or a service. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. I'm just doing this quickly to demonstrate, to get the full background on how to create tasks. I'll refer to one of our beginner videos, but you would see you'd have a lot of these tasks building up every day based on what work is needed. And then at the beginning of every day, you can click your route schedule, and it'll ask you, do you want to put open tasks into the route?
Okay.
And I would need to set up my route technicians first, but what that's going to allow me to do is anything open for the current day is automatically added on to the route schedule under a one-time frequency. That'll then allow you to build your routes day to day based on the work you have. Is you would use these tasks as their appointments, if you will, add them at the beginning of the day to the route schedule, and then you can map it, get the best order, give that to the driver, and then the next day you would just do the same thing again, add those days' tasks to the route schedule. The ones from the day before would be cleared. And once we set up route technicians here in a moment, remind me before this class is over to come back to this, and I'll demonstrate adding these tasks onto the schedule. But now we have our frequencies set up. I now need to set up my technicians or drivers. And I do that simply by double-clicking my route schedule. And there are a couple fields we need to set up. We do have a lot of options here for kind of keeping track of these guys, what we can do for our reports. But simply we need the first 3 or 4 fields here filled out. So I'm going to create my first route. I'm just going to label it Route 1, R1 for short. Put in my technician or driver's name. Then a description could be Route 1. Now you could alternatively set this up with a truck or car number or any type of label. This could be Truck 1. I'm just using R1 and R2 because it's real easy to understand when watching these videos. I set up a second tech, R2. I could even put them in a department. I can put them in the routing department. And I can double click in this field here to set up different departments. And these populate on a lot of our routing reports. So you want to make sure that if you use departments, make sure all the route techs are in the same one. So now I have 2 technicians, and I can start building my route schedule. So for instance, I'm going to select a frequency here, weekly. I'm going to start working with John's schedule first, so I'm going to select him as the technician. And I'm going to start working on his schedule for today. So I'm going to pick today's date. And when I click in the day field, it'll automatically populate the rest for me all the way to the stop number. This could be stop number 1. Then I would pick a customer. Now I've just added a customer to my schedule. And based on the frequency and the date of service, or the route date, I know this customer is going to reoccur weekly on Monday. So now I could set up maybe a second stop. I can use any frequency. Still going to work on John's schedule for Monday. Stop number 2. I'm going to pick a customer. I'm going to just quickly add a couple stops to the schedule using this format. So now I have 4 stops for my first technician on Monday. He's got a Monday schedule set up now that'll reoccur every week, or whatever is based on that customer's frequency. Now if I want to set up my second technician schedule for that same Monday, I just start on the new line, pick the frequency. Now I'm going to set up R2 and pick the same day, Monday. I'm restarting my stop numbering at number 1 because I've switched technicians here. So his schedule is going to start at number 1, then I'll start picking a couple customers. And maybe he only has 2 stops for Monday. Now I would set up the Tuesday schedule for both technicians in the same format. Just start on the new line, and I'll work with John again, and we'll set up his Tuesday schedule. Stop number 1, because I'm either switching days or switching technicians, you need to start your stop numbering over. And you can put these customers in on any order on this page, and then if you hit reset, it'll refresh the page and put them and group the stops by date, by tech. Now as you can see, the top line here is always blank, and that's used for filtering or sorting this route schedule. For instance, if I want to see John's schedule for Tuesday, just select it in the drop-downs. And I can see his 1 stop for Tuesday. And again, reset brings back the default view. Now I could set up some route notes. These are great. The technician sees them either on their printed route sheet or on our mobile devices. So anything you need to notify the tech of for this customer, maybe there are a couple services that they're supposed to do for that visit, or every visit, these route notes stay on the schedule until you change them or delete them. And I can double click in this route notes field to bring up a larger box where I could key in any notes for that one stop. Maybe call customer before service. Maybe this customer. List a couple different services that you want the guys to do every time.
Bill?
Yes.
So in the route notes that you're working on right now, that's something that is just a standard for that customer. It's going to come up every time they get the route sheet, right?
Correct.
Is there a spot where if somebody calls during the week and says, oh, when you come this week, can you just check on this, that we can add a one-time note?
You could use the route notes for just that. I'm giving an example of where you could use them as static notes to list different things, but you could very well use these as just notes for that one upcoming service and change them from week to week.
Will it, if we want to just use it once, is there a way that it will stick around the once and then be gone for the next time? Or do you have to manually?
No, it will only show up, or it will stay in there until you either change it or remove it.
Okay.
Now, a little trick with the route notes. If you see that the word route notes is blue and underlined, well, this is a route schedule meant to set up deliveries or services to customers' addresses. I don't see an address on this route schedule. For some of you, it may be beneficial to want to see that address, so just click where it says route notes. The column just switches, and now you can see addresses, and just click address to bring back your route notes. My next kind of column over is my suspended column. This is where I can suspend any stop on my schedule, kind of just freezing it in place. It will not print on any hard copy route sheet. It won't show up on their mobile device. So it's a great way that maybe a customer calls and cancels service for that week. You suspend them on the schedule. Or if a customer is late on their payments and they have a service due today, you can go ahead and suspend their service. The guys won't end up doing them, and sure enough, that customer will call and be like, hey, why didn't you guys come out today? Suspending the service is also great if you do any seasonal work. For instance, a lot of you in pool industry, lawn companies up north, you maybe do pool openings and closings, or you maybe get into the winter months, you go from a weekly to a bi-weekly or a weekly to a monthly service. I can use a stop good through date as maybe their weekly service is good through 10/1/2013. When our schedule gets to that date, it's automatically going to suspend that one stop. So you could set up initially when you're planning your routes, you could set up this customer on a bi-weekly and a weekly, but you suspend the bi-weekly one right away on the schedule. You then put in a stop good through date on the weekly service, like I have here. When the schedule hits that date, it suspends the stop, and then you could unsuspend their bi-weekly one and run that to a certain stop good through date as well. If for whatever reason a stop was missed or the customer called to cancel the service that week, we can use a missed reason to track that. That way when we send this scheduled history to the customers, you have a reason why that stop wasn't serviced. And you can set these up just by double-clicking in that field. For each stop, I could put in a budgeted travel time and route time to perform that service. This will populate on a lot of our reports. I also could put a grouping with the stops. And I could use this to group stops together of similar service. Maybe I offer standard lawn maintenance, some turf care, and also a spray route. You could group those customers together through this group maintenance to help automate billing, which we'll get into here in just a moment. And then track number of stops. The last farthest on the far right here, this is either great for lawn industry if you maybe schedule your services by the number of cuts. So if a customer's on weekly service, I could set a starting date, and I'm going to budget 52 cuts once a week. And then as you service the customers, our schedule keeps count of how many you've actually done and how many are left. You could also use this for contracted service. Whether a customer prepays for X amount of services, you could put that in here. When it reaches 0, it's time to bill them again. Let's take a look at printing a route sheet. Basically printing a schedule I can hand my guys. I'm going to go to Route Info, Print Route Sheets. I could pick a particular technician. Or I could leave it blank and print everyone's schedule for a particular date range. I'm going to go ahead and print everyone's schedule for today. And then here's the drop down where we have a couple different options. These are basically just different templates of that route sheet. The data is the same, just laid out a little differently. My favorites are version 3 and version 3 with crew info. It just depends on kind of what you're looking for. Version 3 with crew info gives us a nice look. Let me go ahead and do that one first here. As you can see, the route schedule is kind of tied to one technician. This would be a way of maybe Route 1, John, is the crew leader. And then he's got X amount of people on his crew. You can use this here where they can write in the different people working with him that day, their individual start and stop times, as well as a truck number and beginning and ending mileage. You also then see for Route 1 his 4 stops for today. Each one there with the customer, their address, the box that is populated with the route notes, and then it gives them a spot to write down an arrival and departure time. This is just page 1. If I go to the second page, this is Route 2 schedule. Bill, here are his 2 stops.
Are you going to, I guess the next step here is populating that with directions for them, or is that just what the notes, I guess what I'm asking is, the notes there is something that shows up every time. How about like we do swimming pools. Mm-hmm. So on each one, I'll want to have different fields where they can put in the chemicals that that what the chemical levels were for 5 different things, yep, and also what chemicals we sold to them and added to the pool that day.
There's 3 or 4 different ways to do that, depending on how you plan to use our software. If you're going to be using the mobile devices, you don't have to worry about printing anything out. They do everything from their phone. They pull up their schedule, they get directions, and do their what we call route tickets all on the mobile device. Now, if you're going to be running on hard copy and want to use a paper or print system to start with, I'd recommend, if you wanted to keep less amount of paper, I believe it's either version 1 or 2. Let me let's see. There it is. Version 1 for the pool industry would give you each stop as well as the fields for the different chemical tracking.
Okay, sure.
Now this is, I would say, the mobile devices is the first way to do it, where they are actually pulling up their schedule on their smartphone. They can see their first stop, they tap on it, then they see all of pretty much this information, the route details, and then they would hit another button on their phone called Ticket Entry, which would then bring them to a form on their phone that they can fill out all the different chemical readings, select water clarity, what they did, tile skim, vacuum brush, and as well as enter in any additional line items for upselling or additional charges. The second way to do this for the pool industry would be through this route sheet. You just print out this schedule either for the one day or for the full week. They do all their entry right on here, turn them in, and then you would then have to key in this data somewhere.
Yeah, I plan on getting the mobiles.
Okay. Best option. Less work for you. If we are doing the print system, what you would then be entering that data into would be a route ticket. And if you're not using the mobile devices, you would go route info, ticket entry. Here is then where you would pick the customer that text serviced, the date, the route it was on, the stop number. You would put in that text arrival and departure time. You would fill out what they did, put in the chemical readings, any additional comments, and then they would have the option to select line items. Maybe for, if you do charge for chemicals, they can, right on here, select the chemical or part used if they had to sell another basket because it was cracked or an O-ring. And this, again, can all be done on the mobile device.
I got a question. So, on the mobile device, is there a way that maybe they could see what happened the previous week on their route? You know, sometimes I give the route to John, but maybe the next week Tim had to take some of those pools, and he could see if what happened last week, did it get backwashed or not? So is there a way that you can put something that happened in the previous week that comes up every week?
As of right now, there is not. But we are, I just got literally this morning a copy of our updated app that we're going to be releasing to iPhone and the Android platform. Those will be, I think, available to you guys no later than the end of this week, maybe first of next week. Our new update has route ticket history. You'll be able to, no matter what customer, as long as they're on your route schedule, you'll be able to go in to see their history and see any information from those route tickets for their last 4 stops.
Oh, great. That's what I'm looking for.
You'll also get with this update signature capture, which is a big one for us. So we've now printed a route sheet. We've gone over how to set up the route schedule. The other thing our software can do is utilize route tickets. Now, obviously, I've demonstrated a route ticket for the pool industry, but route tickets are for all of our users, regardless of industry. Each industry has their own version of the route ticket for the mobile devices and here on the desktop. And your route tickets can be used to help automate the billing in a couple big ways. One, they can accurately be a representation of how many times you serviced a customer in a month. So you could truly set up per stop servicing or per stop services and generate a monthly bill that would reflect exactly how many times you were there based on how many route tickets that customer had. You could also use route tickets in the route schedule to auto-generate an invoice that can be then given to the customer at the time of service. So you could pre-print these ahead of time. To do that, I would need to tie in some sort of pricing to these customers. And I'm just going to double click on the customers right here on my route schedule to pull up their customer detail. Go to the pricing page, and here's where I could set up maybe a service charge that they get per service. To make this work, to automate the billing, I would then need to tie in when this occurs, and that customer on my route schedule was a weekly. I can go to my next customer, which is bi-weekly, do the same thing. I've already got something set up in here for them. Just need to adjust my frequency bi-weekly. Now I'm just using the same line item in this example. You could have different line items, a combination. If you had a customer that was maybe getting more than one scheduled service, maybe they got scheduled lawn maintenance as well as turf control or some sort of granular or grub spray. You could set up multiple services on here. As long as you tie in the correct route frequency, our software will auto-generate the invoicing based on what services due that day. All right, so now I'm going to auto-generate my tickets for today's date. So I do that by going Route Info, Auto-Generate Route Tickets. And just a note, if you're using the mobile devices, you never auto-generate route tickets. With the mobile devices, the tickets are generated from the tech out in the field rather than being pre-created in the office. This method is only for customers looking to print. I pick my date I want the tickets for, today's date. I could then separate it out just by a route or by a particular customer. I'm just going to generate everything for today. And go down to Generate Tickets. Now I have a couple different versions of how I could print these out. The default is just a standard invoice that would give you one invoice per customer with whatever that pricing item on their pricing page was. So you can see here as I switch pages, each customer has their specific price and their own invoice. I also could use, let's say, 3-part version 1, which is designed to be a 3-part invoice where you'd have a customer copy, an office copy, and then a remit slip that the customer could then mail back to you with payment. And this does give you the total amount due, including their balance, the charge from this service. Here's the customer copy, same thing, and the remit to.
When you're doing the invoicing, maybe I missed it, but are we still talking? You're still talking about generate tickets. You're not talking about invoicing yet, right?
No, I'll show you that here in just a second, what these route tickets will do, either if you've auto-generated or if the techs have done the tickets. Either way you create the ticket, we can use that to generate the invoicing that goes to QuickBooks.
Okay.
and we are going to be running a few minutes over on this class just to let everyone know it's about 10 till now. I do want to try to get through this full demonstration and still show you map points, so we may run a couple minutes over if that's all right with everyone. So now if I go route info, route ticket list, I can see those pre-created invoices, or if I'm using the mobile devices, at the end of the day, I would come to my route ticket list and I would see something very similar to this. All my tickets would be in here, created from the techs in their handhelds. I would open up each ticket and be able to see, what they have done, any additional line items that I may need to bill for. Now, there are a couple ways I can use route tickets for monthly invoicing. If I simply charge my customers a flat rate monthly charge, maybe for service plus chemicals, or service including chemicals, or if you want to bill for chemicals separately, we first need to set up our memorized transactions, basically those flat rate monthly charges. If you want to bill your customers per service, we still would go to this page here. We would need to pick the customer. So I'm just going to go to my route schedule to look at what customers I have on here. I'm going to take my first one. Maybe I have monthly cleaning, and we charge him a flat rate, $150 a month. Now, if all I needed was our software to generate an invoice for this customer once a month for $150, mission accomplished. I would then go down my full route schedule, add all those customers here with whatever you charge them per month. Once a month, I would just hit Post to QuickBooks, and it would generate invoices in QuickBooks just like QuickBooks memorized transactions. The only benefit being I don't have to rename my item descriptions each month if I want to put in dates of service. So maybe this is going to be monthly pull service for March. I could hit update description, and then every customer on here would have that new updated description with the dates that you're maybe billing for.
I'm not really following you. So you enter the person on the route ticket list, and then you enter them on the transaction list?
Your
Is that how it
route,
works?
your route schedule is managing when you're servicing that customer. Your memorized transaction list is managing the billing portion of that, what you're either charging flat rate or per service.
Is that the same, like when you're doing your mobile and
Yep.
they mark it done, either way you got to do the memorized list here?
Yeah, you just set it up once for your customers that you're currently servicing. What the route tickets then let you do is, let's say this is a per service customer. We want to charge them $25 per stop. Now at the end of the month, I'm going to put in my date range for the month I'm billing for. I want to calculate the number of route stops based on route tickets. Calculate. It knows by looking for this customer in my route ticket list, I've only been there once. So what it does is put in the number of stops as 1, and takes 1 times my per stop rate and gives me a total. If I had serviced this customer 3 times, it would have given me a total of $75. Now the nice thing, let's say for instance this customer, let's say when the tech was out in the field, he added in some additional charges. Maybe he needed a part here and charging for some chemicals. So those route tickets are where you'd put any extra charges you need to allocate for in the monthly billing, as well as their chemical tracking. Now you, once a month, come here, you calculate based on route tickets, calculate number of stops. You've got your base monthly charge created now. What our software does is take this base monthly rate, combine it with any route tickets for that customer for the dates you're billing for, and generates one detailed invoice in QuickBooks with the dates of service from the individual route tickets. Let me open up QuickBooks and I'll demonstrate. So I've got QuickBooks open, and I've calculated my number of stops, and now I want this one customer, that $25, to be combined with those extra charges from that route ticket. So after I would have calculated my stops, I'm going to hit Post to Route Tickets. It updates my date of billing as 3/4. I then go to Tickets Pending to Post. And I'm billing for the 4th through whatever date. The date I want to appear on my QuickBooks invoice, and then post to QuickBooks. This first line item does not exist in QuickBooks. I added that just locally here to the service program. What I would get on the QuickBooks side is something very, very similar to this. I would get the pool service charge for March, that $25, plus any additional items on that customer's invoice, whatever they were from the route tickets, whether they're chlorine sticks, an upsold basket, a plug, or an O-ring. Everything gets detailed out with the dates of service per route ticket. So if this customer had 4 route tickets, I would see 4 line items here, each one dated with the service date. Now, one piece to this route schedule, if we need to post our routes every week. What that simply means is when you're done servicing the current week, we need to advance these service dates so we can set up our next week of service, or basically those customers' next service dates. We do that by posting the route down here at the bottom of our route schedule. I would select the beginning date of the week and then the ending date of the week we just completed. So I'm assuming that today is Friday, possibly the 8th. and we're marking everything as complete that we've done that past week. Then I hit Post Route. All my dates on my route schedule now have advanced according to each individual customer's frequency. All my stops for Monday the 4th have now advanced 7 days to the 11th. My biweekly stop for Tuesday skipped next Tuesday and jumped the following. My monthly stop advanced 28 days. It's still on a Monday. So now my schedule for the following week set up. Now let's go ahead and see what we can do to map and optimize this route. I'm going to put everything just onto one route for right now, just so we have a couple stops to map for. Put everything as today, the 11th here. Now, one thing you want to make sure before you try to do any mapping with our software is that those customers' addresses are set up correctly, either in QuickBooks or the service program. We use the service address line 2 as the physical service address, the mapping address for these customers. And on the route schedule, if you flip your route notes to see your addresses, you want to make sure you have no blank addresses or cities here. Otherwise, you will get an error when mapping. One bad address will stop all the mapping for the route. So I'm going to go ahead and pick an assigned to R1 and an assigned date of the 11th. I'm basically just telling our software I want to map everything for Route 1 on the 11th, then hit Map. This is when our software goes and reaches out to Microsoft MapPoint, which you do have to have Microsoft MapPoint installed for this to work, and it sends that routing data right into MapPoint, opens it up automatically for me, and starts plotting my route. Now obviously there's something wrong with stop number 7 here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my route planner. And I can see there's something not quite right about that one customer's address. Maybe there's a same address of somewhere in Atlanta where it's trying to map. And at this point I could use a latitude and longitude for this customer to override their address. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to remove it from the route. So now we can see my stops mapped here. I'm going to take my company's address or my starting point and add it as the ending point. Tells me the route has changed. Click this line to get directions. And as of right now, it's about 42 miles, about an hour and 20 minutes of driving, the way that it's mapped and plotted. So I'm going to hit Optimize Stops. So it cut out about 10 miles and about 20 minutes of driving. Reordered my stops for me. And now I would take this new numbering that MapPoint's suggesting and just transpose it right into the service program stop order. Now the nice thing about MapPoint is I could save these as directions just right to your desktop. It'll save a little icon. You could double click and open up this route mapped and optimized the way it is. Or I could even click File and Send to a mail recipient. This will allow you to email these directions right to your guy's phone.
When we're setting up the tasks, I understand they're different than this. When we're setting up the task and we're going out to open 4 pools in a day, can we do this same mapping with what we're doing there?
Yes, perfect. I did think we had another person in this class who wanted to kind of see what we can do with tasks. And what you're asking, yes, we can do, and quite easy. I'm just going to create one more task for today, and we'll say they're for pool openings, or they could be for any scheduled service or call-in service. You would want to make sure that you are just assigning them to your route guy. So I'm just assigning these work orders to Route 1, whether they're pool openings again or any scheduled service.
And they won't actually come, will they actually come up on Route 1 when you're at, because the openings would be different than from the weekly service? We wouldn't want to do the two together.
Correct. You would pick, if you had a route tech that's going to do the openings, you would select him here, whoever he was.
Okay.
I'm just picking Route 1 because that's the route I have set up on the schedule. You may have, you know, a column like
we can make it
anything.
I understand. Make whatever route we want. Route 5 could be an opening route. I understand.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then now all I would have to do is click my route schedule. Would you like to put open tasks onto the route schedule? Press yes. If you noticed, it's added 3 stops with a frequency called task to my route schedule. So now these 3 stops are here, and I could take maybe the 2 of them for Monday and map, just like I would a regular route.
Cool.
Now the nice thing is these function like a one-time stop. So let's say you're done with the stops on the 4th when you post your route. The one-time services get deleted, but the tasks still remain. So your work order still stays open, but just the routing part drops off the schedule when you're done with the service.
Okay.
And that's, again, I think for Joy, if that's how you would dynamically build your routes from day to day. You would add your current workload onto a route schedule. You could then map it, print out a schedule, and then when the day's over, you post your route. All those one-time services get removed. They get stored in the customer's history. Then you would do that again for the next day.
Okay. Bill,
Mm-hmm.
is there going to be a video for how the training for the mobile app for the drivers or whoever's working with the task globally?
Yeah, I can. We currently don't have a mobile device class just because it's so hard for me to demonstrate what they can do. I do have a piece of technology now that allows me to emulate what our app looks like and show that in a video on real time. I can pull it up in my screen and move through it. We haven't added it to our official training schedule yet, but
Okay.
what I can do this Friday, our Q&A class, I would be more than happy if you wanted to come to that class and ask that very same question. I'd take 20 minutes of that class and can kind of run through a little bit on the mobile devices.
Thank you. You said Friday's class, the Q&A class?
Yeah, Friday at 2 p.m., our question and answer, just kind of open discussion, is a great class. You can always come to that one and ask me anything that's troubling you or anything you'd like to see demonstrated, and I would be more than happy to do the mobile class. I think a lot of people would find that beneficial.
I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that I can test run with the system without technically creating anything in the system? Just to practice what I've actually seen you do?
We don't have any dummy data out there that you can load up. You do have to either sync it with your QuickBooks and get some customers in there. Now, we don't send anything back to QuickBooks unless you are physically pushing a button that says kind of post to QuickBooks. So there'd be no fear in syncing our software with QuickBooks and getting the information in here. You could play around all you'd like, and then we can kind of wipe the service program clean and resync with QuickBooks when you're ready to really get into it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. The last, I know I'm way over on time here, the last thing I do want to demonstrate, because it is one of my favorite parts of the software, is how to figure out once you've got your existing route set up, now what? How do I add new customers and find out where they should be on the route without having to go and jump through a bunch of hoops? Under Route Info, we have Map New Distance for a route stop. This is where I can pick a customer that is not on any service yet. Maybe they're a new customer. I just added them into QuickBooks. I select them and hit Get Distance. Our software is going to go search your existing routes and try to give us the closest stop to this new customer. And there it is. Right away, it's now showing me every stop I currently have, and my closest one is always at the top. Now, this new customer is only 2.6 miles away from an existing service or existing stop, and I could simply hit before or after, and it's automatically going to put the new customer right before or after that scheduled stop. There's no need to remap, no need to optimize or do anything else. That is the closest or best place for it. Maybe that customer can't get serviced on Monday. Maybe it has to be Tuesday. Well, you could filter it by a day and say, show me the closest stop on Tuesday.
So now with this, you know, that you had all Route 1. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to name my routes like Route 1 and 2 are Wednesday, Route 3 and 4 is Thursday, Route 5 and 6 is Friday.
Don't do
and then
that.
You could show routes and it'll tell you where to place it.
I would not recommend you set up a different, if you are going to, I don't recommend you set up the route schedule the way you just described it, where 1 and 2 is Wednesday, 2 and 3, so on and so forth. I would, if Route 1, let me rephrase that. How many technicians do you have?
I'll have 2 technicians, and they'll each have 3 different routes. Well, they'll each do a route on 3 different days.
Okay, so if you have 2 techs, you have a Route 1 and a Route 2.
Okay.
I don't recommend you break it out into a Route 2 or Route 1 Wednesday and a Route 1 Thursday, for instance. Route 1 can have a schedule for Monday, for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday. You don't need to go create a different route for a separate day.
Okay.
Just to make it just real simple for you. A lot of other routing software I have really found does it that way, where they want, you know, if you have John has a Monday schedule, John has a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, so he's got like 5 different routes in a work week. Why make it that complicated when John can have a separate Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all with one identifier, if you will, Route 1?
Okay.
Just because in our program, as you can see, everywhere you go to pick something, you're picking a route plus a date of service. So by picking Route 1 for Wednesday, you're going to only see that one tech schedule for that one upcoming day. You're not going to, and when you map new distance for a route stop, you can, I just have everything on Route 1 right now. I just set up that one route for mapping, but I could filter it to Route 2, Route 3, the 3 different technicians, or I could say, you know, they need to be serviced on Thursday, what's my closest stop? Or they need to be weekly on Thursday, who's my closest guy? You can really drill down. I will point you into a good spot here. If you go to our online help, if we go to videos, and if you look at this top routing and mapping class on the recording section, that class from last, or I believe it was last week, I did a very similar demonstration where we went into a little bit more detail on the billing and invoicing side. I know I kind of quickly skimmed through that here in this class, so if you want some more information on how to manage the billing side, I refer you to that class until we have our rounding one again. And then, of course, anything today will be up within 48 hours. It'll be on this website listed right under Trading Class Recordings. Any other quick questions I can answer for anyone? All right. Thank you all for coming to our routing and mapping class this afternoon. I hope you have a great rest of your workday, and look forward to seeing you in the classes the rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.